Why the Seattle Mariners struggle to consistently make the playoffs. Let's talk about it. So today's video, I want to do something a little bit different and to not put a bad vibe in anybody's mouth, but this is kind of the main reason that I've seen by doing some research why the Mariners really struggle to make the playoffs ever since, 1995. So as most of us know, since 1995, the Seattle Mariners have made the playoffs 5 times, so that would be 5 times in about 29, 30 years. And while yes, the most obvious answer to spit out there is ownership and their problems with not spending money and really committing to this team. But for all my stat heads out there, I want to do some deeper digging and to see what the consistent theme is since 1995 over a course of about 4 to 5 seasons that really makes the Seattle Mariners just consistently miss the playoffs. And the main reason this came to my head is because I feel like 2024 was a huge reason and just a massive inconsistency with the whole team, the team as a whole, except the starting pitching. So for those of you that like the graphs in my videos, it's going to definitely describe a lot over the past 25, 30 seasons and to kind of see where and why the Seattle Mariners continue to just not make the playoffs. Also, one thing to keep in mind when going through these stats, I want you to see the common theme that I'm going with here. I will obviously describe a lot more when I'm done going over the graphs, but I definitely want you guys to try to figure out where I'm going with this. So nonetheless, let's get into the stats. So what you're going to be seeing on these graphs is the difference between offense and starting pitching. So as you can tell by our first graph on the screen, this is from 1995 to 2000, where they had a record of 500 and 453, and they had made the playoffs 3 times. Over the course of these 5 seasons, they had a 109 WRC plus as a team, which was tied for second in the MLB. Over this time span, while starting pitching had an 84.4 WAR, which was 12th in Major League Baseball, and the ERA for starting pitching was a 4.85, which was 20th in Major League Baseball. So with those numbers and with that consistency from the offense, as well as having a top 15 pitching staff, that is a main reason why they had 3 playoff appearances over this time span. So besides those very solid 5 years from the Seattle Mariners, let's get into the really interesting part and the big drought that we all know that happened. So from 2001 to 2005, the Seattle Mariners were 434 and 376, which actually is not bad. It's a pretty solid winning percentage, but they had only made the playoffs 1 time during that stretch. Even with an offense that had a 103 WRC plus, which was 5th in Major League Baseball, and a 138.5 WAR over the course of these 5 seasons, which was 2nd in all of Major League Baseball. But here's kind of where they struggled and why they didn't make as many playoff appearances as they should have, and that is because the starting pitching had a 53.7 WAR, which was 20th in all of baseball over that span. While having an offense that had almost a 140 WAR over the course of those seasons, that is extremely good, and then the starting pitching just had about a third of that, which was just not good for the Seattle Mariners. So let's move into a time where things kind of get a little bit brutal, and that is from 2006 to 2010, where they had a record of 373 and 437. So basically a complete flop from 2001 to 2005, where they made the playoffs 0 times, but the offense had a 91 WRC plus, which was 24th in Major League Baseball. They had a 63.3 WAR, so less than half of what they did over those previous 5 years, which was 27th in baseball. But the starting pitching wasn't terrible. They had a 55.4 WAR, which was 17th in Major League Baseball across that span. So obviously there really isn't too much there. There's just a lot of struggling pieces, not a good offense, not too great of starting pitching. So that is a massive reason for those 5-year struggles that they had over the course of 2006 to 2010. Now let's get into what Mariner fans have been a little bit used to these past few seasons. From 2011 to 2015, they had a record of 376 and 434, where they also made the playoffs 0 times. The offense had a 91 WRC plus, which was 24th in Major League Baseball, and they only had a 58.1 WAR, which was 29th, so basically the 2nd worst in baseball during that span. But now moving down to the starting pitching had a 59.8 WAR, which was 13th in Major League Baseball, and a 3.96 ERA, which was 12th in Major League Baseball. So they had a top 13 pitching staff over the course of these 4 to 5 seasons, but the offense was just so bad that they didn't make the playoffs once, and they had a very well below 500 winning percentage over that stretch. I hope you guys are trying to pick up on this common theme that I'm going for, and I will describe it once I'm done with these graphs. So from 2016 to 2020, the Seattle Mariners had a record of 348 and 360, which is a little bit improved from the past 10 seasons, but they also still continued to make the postseason 0 times over this stretch. Now, their offense was actually one of the most solid in Major League Baseball with a 101 WRC plus over the stretch, which was 9th in Major League Baseball, and they had an 86.3 WAR, which was 15th in Major League Baseball. While, there you go, there's the starting pitching that had a 48.9 WAR, which was 25th in Major League Baseball. So they had a bottom 5 starting pitching staff, but also a top 15, arguably top 10 offense in all of baseball. If this chart doesn't give away what I'm trying to get at, then I don't know what else will. Now let's move into the very dreaded 2020 to 2024, where they had a record of 380 and 328, which is extremely solid, but only have one playoff appearance to show for it. The offense over this stretch was tied 11th in Major League Baseball with a 103 WRC plus, an 83.2 WAR, which was 15th in Major League Baseball over this stretch. And your starting pitching had a 63.2 WAR, which was 12th, and a 3.78 ERA, which was 7th in Major League Baseball over these past 4 seasons. Now, I do want to slightly touch on the 2020 to 2024 time span, because obviously a 380 and 328 record is not a bad record to have, and there has been a little bit of bad luck mixed in. As we know, they have had 90 wins and still have missed the playoffs. So there is a little bit of bad luck. There really is no doubting that that's just bad luck. 90 wins would have clearly gotten them into the playoffs this season. So you have to admit there is a little bit of bad luck mixed in. But the biggest thing for these teams from the 2020 to 2024 time was the inconsistency in certain months. So they would have really, really good months where they'd go on massive hot streaks, and they'd have really, really bad months where they'd go on massive losing streaks. So while in most seasons 90 wins does get you to the postseason, if they didn't have these massive slumps that they would go through over these past 4 seasons, we saw it this year, they really never got too hot this year. They were kind of just consistently average. But in the past, they have had terrible months. Like I'm talking like 8 and 15 months. Like that is just really bad when you're trying to make the playoffs. But nonetheless, there is definitely some bad luck mixed in when having 90 wins and still missing out by 1 game. But remember what I said, something in my mind sparked this, and that was the 2024 season with the inconsistency of the offense with the absolutely dominant pitching staff. This really is not something new. Over the past 20 years, as you can see by some of these graphs, they either have a really good offense and really just mediocre to below average pitching, or they have really good starting pitching and a very, very bad offense. So obviously, while we can blame ownership for, not hiring the right coaches or, not bringing in the right talent to really make these offenses or the starting pitching staff improve, we can definitely sit here and say there's some bad luck mixed in, as well as there's just complete inconsistency from one is really good and one just really isn't. So the name of the game for the Seattle Mariners going forward, especially in the 2025 season, should really just be consistency. And that's just consistency across the board, from relief pitching to starting pitching to offense. If they can just sit middle of the pack to maybe, sneak into the top 10 in certain categories, they will be a very good team, and they will most likely 90% chance they make the playoffs if they just do this consistently for an entire season. Now, that is obviously easier said than done, but this team has the talent to go out and do it. They just need the guys that have the track record to go out and play really great baseball, to just be consistent and play their best game for an entire year. But like I said, I really didn't want to bring the mood down with making a video like this, but it was something that came to my head, and I was really just intrigued to dig deeper into the stats and really see what the reason is they have struggled to make the playoffs over the past 25 seasons. And the answer is honestly more clear than I had thought. I had an idea that maybe, there was some inconsistency across the board, but there was really just a massive split in seasons or, chunks of time where they really struggled. They just, there was really bad pitching, great offense, really great pitching, really bad offense. So that's just one of the things that Seattle Mariners really need to figure out going forward, and just bring in those guys that can be consistent for an entire season. But please let me know down in the comments if you guys enjoyed this video and what your thoughts are about it. I figured I'd do a little bit more of a statistical video for this one. But otherwise, I hope you guys did enjoy the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.